Okay, so let's see what's in store for our girl Sylvanas. Let's see what's in store for her.
Sylvanas' soul has been fractured from the moment of her death until now.
Sylvanas' soul has been retconned.
This was their home. And you slaughtered all of them! How could you take all those innocent lives? This was beyond life and death. There was no other path to true freedom. How can you not see that? I see what you are. Murderer! Monster! Butcher! Why
Wait, that's
can I
supposed to be
not
Wing
escape
Sylvanas,
this
right?
torment?
The jailer has severed their bond and condemned her to endlessly relive her atrocities. So long as her soul remains divided, she cannot wake.
Maybe she shouldn't.
She's the only one who knows the jailer's plan and how we might save Anduin.
She's the one that turned Anduin.
Jaina is right. How can we possibly trust her?
Her wound runs so much deeper than mine. Well met, Ranger General.
What is this? Who are you?
Someone who shared your fate, felled by the blade of the very same prince.
Arthas. I died trying to stop that monster, only to wake up haunted by one with my face.
That Banshee is you.
No. I cannot accept that.
Her path began where yours ended, and you've seen the decisions she made.
Never in 1,000 lifetimes would I betray everything I stood for. You can't possibly understand.
The jailer is deceptively cunning. When I realized I had become his pawn, it nearly destroyed me. He had no doubts it would destroy you as well. Was he right? Or will you accept her shattered legacy and tell us how to stop him?
Her crimes are unforgivable.
Yes.
And she... I must face the consequences.
We cannot change the past, and we may never find forgiveness in the future.
It's hilarious that Uther says we cannot change the past. Does anybody find any irony in that? Just a smidge, or maybe even an overwhelming deluge of irony? Uther says we can't change the past, right as Blizzard is retconning the actual fuck out of Sylvanas. Now that is fucking bold, dude. That's some bull. We cannot change the past, so we'll retcon it. This is so dumb, dude. So it's like Sylvanas hasn't been Sylvanas ever since she got killed by Arthas. It just hasn't been her. It's not her. It's straight up, yeah, it's like this character, from the moment that she got killed by Arthas, actually became a completely different character. Like, this was planned all along. All along. Take a look at this. What is this? Let's see. This better not be a picture of a dick. Bit of an oof from exploring Kalimdor. The Dark Portal wouldn't exist for another 10,000 years. I can see how a slip like that would be easily made during a first draft, but I'd imagine it'd be picked up in further drafts/reads. They were trying to draw energy away from the Dark Portal, which the Burning Legion was using to invade Azeroth. Wait, I heard the Blue Dragons went their separate ways, but seeing Lakeman is making me think otherwise. Might just be this lake remains special again. Rexar thinks they gather here because something magical is drawing them to the lakeshore. Thousand years ago, the ruins along the lake formed Menar.
If only I could be so grossly incandescent.
During the War
Glad
of the
to see
Ancients.
you, Louis.
During the War of the Ancients, the mages used the arcane stone to redirect veins of magical energy called ley lines. They were trying to draw energy away from the Dark Portal. What? Oh my god. They can't even get their own fucking lore right. They can't even get their fucking lore right. Didn't quote tweet this is a fairly chunky Twitter. Didn't want to inflame any asked with consideration directed at the Dark Portal didn't exist during the time of the Sundering. The Burning Legion invaded Azeroth with the aid of Ashara through the Well of Eternity during the War of the Ancients. Oh god. Seems like someone didn't pay attention to Illidan. It's not a joke. It really happened 10,000 years ago. Oh my god, dude.
But inaction damns us all. Time is short, Ranger General. Make your choice. I've done all I can.
Time to redeem Sylvanas. Let's see what Bellular has to say about this cinematic, because like this to me feels like some bullshit. Let's see Bellular's justification, because he's like all deep with the lore.
Well then, hello, this is a bit of an odd day because a full cinematic has came out, and it hasn't been data mined on the PTR or anything like that. Blizzard literally have put a full 4.5 minute cinematic out. And it's not a trailer. It is an in-game cinematic from patch 9.2. Now, I've since found out why they've actually done this. They have done this because there are new campaign chapters coming out on the public test realm, and they want those testers to have seen this cinematic so that they can understand some of the story. Now, considering how I do believe that we should be prioritizing the average player and them playing it all in-game first, I do think it's a very strange way for this to come out. More thoughts on that later.
Imagine seeing like a chunk of Endwalker's lore on the official Final Fantasy XIV YouTube page before the game was even out. Just throw that out there, just food for thought.
But that's why there's a new cinematic now. Also then, just to set some expectations here, just so that things are realistic. Look, the Sylvanas storyline has obviously been controversial, and I think it's been controversial for two reasons. Number one, the literal things that have actually happened with that character, and, well, actually three. Number two, I think some confusion over her motivations, and I think then number three, which plays into number two, is Sylvanas not really being told in-game that much. We don't get much of her perspective. We don't really see her as a point of view character. It's a sort of thing with this Sylvanas story where it'll probably work pretty well in the book, World of Warcraft Sylvanas, right? If that book's just going to be her story from her perspective. But for a lot of players, especially the people who are more just playing the game, I mean, Sylvanas' story has been a weird, wacky ride that I think a lot of people have struggled with. And all of that means that no matter how good or bad the cinematic is going to be, it's
struggled with. You're struggling with the story.
Certainly going to be controversial, and, B, it's got to make do with the foundation that's been set for it, and it's a bit of a rough and rocky foundation. And as we get into this, it certainly, it does have the lore in an interesting direction, albeit one that was expected based on the Uther storyline in patch 9.1, as well as what we learned from Folk and Fairy Tales, the book, and also from like the little soul fragment, at the end, right, when the jailer, returns Sylvanas' soul to her, obviously not in a charitable way. Okay, let's get into the cinematic analysis bit. So the first thing I want to say is, I think it could be very easy for people to be a bit confused over what they're seeing here, and I've already seen some comments. I'm not blaming people for that. Basically, right, what we're seeing here is not a flashback, right? So nothing that you see here with Sylvanas is a flashback to, like the good bit of Sylvanas looking on in shock as the bad bit of Sylvanas does a thing. It might look like that, but what we're actually seeing here is Sylvanas reliving her deeds while in a coma. So these are not flashbacks to something that happened inside Sylvanas' brain as she, ordered the burning of Teldrassil. This is Sylvanas reliving and reliving and reliving that moment.
I mean, yeah, I felt like that was fairly obvious. They literally state it in the cutscene.
Now that she is has these two parts, and it's her within a coma. So that's what you're literally seeing here. She's, of course, just lying on that table while, our characters are sort of looking on over her. So in that initial bit, we see the Ranger General Sylvanas, complete shock at what Banshee Sylvanas has really done. Again, that's only because the jailer returned Sylvanas' soul to her, but the bond between those fragments of her soul was shattered. And that has forced her to kind of live out this clash of wills while in that coma. Now, the challenging thing here is that Blizzard have previously, I think pretty much said in an interview that it's not like there's a good Sylvanas and an evil Sylvanas. Now, that is pretty strange when you...
That's literally what they did in the cinematic. That's actually literally what they did in the cinematic.
You look at this cinematic and the way that their visual storytelling portrays it, there very literally is evil Banshee, good Ranger General. So make of that what you will. I think my read of this situation is that whenever that soul fragment of Sylvanas was shunted back into her, what basically happened is it manifested itself in her brain as this Ranger General. And now she is having a identity or personality struggle that's playing out. I think maybe that's the way to read it, based on what Blizzard have been saying. A bit more than just, we've always seen evil Sylvanas gallivanting about the place, and good Sylvanas has been reunited with her. Now, I will admit, a lot of people are going to say, you're doing mental gymnastics, bending over yourself, playing a game of Twister, looking like a spaghetti, trying to make it make sense.
Yep.
All I'm trying to do is reconcile what Blizzard have said and sort of hinted at and insinuated in interviews and stuff with what we're seeing now, because I'll absolutely admit, the visual storytelling is 100% that we, for the longest time, knew evil Sylvanas.
So I'm curious, has there ever been any talk of like this soul stuff before? Like he says on the Tales of Fairy Folk or whatever the hell it's called. Tales of the Fae Folk. Tales of the Fae Folk. WoW, maybe? Like stories of folk and fairy tales of Azeroth. Yeah, this is what I want. The stories of folk and fairy. When did this book came out? Is there like a release date? May 25th? Is that right? Is it May 25th? It's definitely 2021 because it says copyright Blizzard Entertainment 2021. So Amazon seems to believe it. This came out in May 25th. I'm just wondering exactly when did Blizzard start delving into the whole soul business.
And good Sylvanas is fine.
Because it seems it's just been like specifically for Shadowlands. They're like going about, oh, these shattered souls, they've been shattered through the thing, and now we're going to put the soul back into the body. And it's like,
And he's been reunited.
that whole soul back into body thing just seems so incredibly familiar. I could have swear I've seen that somewhere before. It's a coincidence, Rurikhan, shut up! Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to bring it up.
With her. That's totally what it looks like, and I will admit, it could also be that. Because, you know, consistency has been a bit strange with Blizzard in these things.
Listen, I understand why he does it, but I really love it when Bellular just goes and is just like, consistency is a bit strange. Almost like they haven't been consistent at all with their storytelling.
Now, we cut back, we see our characters having a chat. Bolvar, of course, you know, from his own experience with his own soul, knows, or sorry, not Bolvar, Uther, right? He kind of, with his own development, he knows what's going on with Sylvanas. He does have a little bit more empathy. Bolvar, of course, correctly identifies like, hey, she knows what's going on. We're going to need her to work out this domination magic, so we need to wake her up. And then, you know, Thrall and Bane and Jaina are all just like, oh, she's terrible and murderous. We don't want her back. You know, maybe she shouldn't wake up. Which actually opens an interesting philosophical little can of worms. So here's a fun teaser for you. Okay.
Tamsin RD, gee, where could they have gotten the idea for a split or rather sundered soul from? Thank you very much for the souls. Tip of the hat. Appreciate the support. Oh my God. Sundered souls. The worst part is that I know that people are going to say it's coincidence. It's just a coincidence. And it's like, sure. I just want these people to tell me at what point does it stop being a coincidence? At what point does it stop? You know? Because like, wasn't it Morpheus that said in the Matrix, where you see coincidence, I see providence.
So if somebody gets a brain tumor and then that changes their personality, say makes them murderous, but then whenever the brain tumor is removed, they return back to normal, what do you think of that person? Do you forgive them? Do you not? I mean, this has literally happened. It was not with murder. It was with, I think, another thing that's a word that I can't say on this platform, but it's an interesting little philosophical.
Don't you love the fact that there are words that you're not allowed to say on YouTube? I think it's amazing that there's just like, it's not censorship. There's just words we can't say.
Teaser, isn't it? I mean, even if it's not literally good guy Sylvanas, bad guy Sylvanas, and it's just her soul was wrought and therefore all these terrible things happened, and then her soul's reunited. I mean, her reunited, is that not, is the only being in the timeline of Sylvanas that is the same as her reunited, not the Ranger General who got killed? Therefore meaning that, in a way, there's a difference in personhood of the Sylvanas that did all the atrocities, in which case, how much blame does that individual actually have? I would say it's quite heavily diminished, and not exactly the same, but there's a Stormblood patch, is it 5.2, 5.3? I think, or 4.2, 4.3, with like the... Well, I actually can't say the name because it'd be a spoiler, but the FF people will know. There's like a similar thing going on of, villain does really terrible shit and, their mental circumstances are altered. So we have to grapple with the
Everybody
degree of
knows
guilt
who
and
he's talking
culpability
about.
that this
Dango.
individual that we see as they are now, how much do they have? How guilty are they? And it's an interesting little question. So all these things are floating around with Sylvanas. Now, moving on, what Uther identifies is that Sylvanas' wound is a lot deeper.
Okay. You can't just compare those two things. Like, I'm sorry, you can't just throw out that comparison. You can't be like, hey, this character that was written like when did Warcraft 3 came out? Let me see. (2002). Okay? You're not going to tell me that this character was written back in 2002, has been undergoing a redemption arc for the last 19 years. 19 years. No. I'm sorry. You don't get to do that. That's not how this works. Okay? You especially don't get to draw a parallel straight to a character where you can clearly see that that arc was planned and those questions were meant to be asked. As a matter of fact, dude, look, it's another coincidence. There just happens to be this. Longest redemption story in history. Yeah, dude. There's coincidences all over this bitch.
She's a more hardcore situation of this jailery, soul-rending business that happens with Frostmourne. Now we go into Uther basically talking.
Then again, Blizzard is pretty much used to, grabbing like a female character. It's like, female character does what we want female character to do. It doesn't make sense though, boss. Female character does what I want it to do. Doesn't need to make sense. Then again, none of their characters need to make sense.
Sylvanas and trying to muddle through all of this with the goal of trying to get her to wake up and fix the problem. So here's a quote from her. "I died trying to stop that monster, only to wake up haunted by one with my face." So from the perspective of that Sylvanas, she's like literally just woken up and this is what she sees and she's forced to relive it and suffer. Now, in spite of everything I just said, that totally does just make it seem like, good guy Sylvanas is back and is now looking in horror what bad guy Sylvanas did.
Yep.
Right? Now, Uther then goes in and says, no, that banshee is you. Sylvanas says, no, I cannot accept that. Uther, her path began where yours ended. Now, that's the weird thing, because if the banshee is her, but her path began where good Sylvanas ended, that does actually make a delineation, and that's a delineation that is marked by, if this is the timeline of Sylvanas, well, good Sylvanas is my pinky finger. She diverged because she got fractured off. So it's a little muddled and unclear, I suppose. Now, Uther tries to clarify all of this by talking about his own soul fracture, because Uther was fractured, and that led to the primary manifestation of Uther that we saw, falling to like Devos and the Forsworn, which obviously was all part of the Jailer's plan. Now, with Uther, it was less of a hardcore sundering, so I don't think it was a situation where, like, you had at least the visual storytelling of like a good Uther and a bad Uther as much, maybe. So, yeah. But that's just saying that, like, Uther was part of the Jailer's plan. Arthas killing Uther, which, is interesting. We think about, like, agency and stuff when you go back to Warcraft 3. Anyway, so after this, Uther says, he had no doubts it would destroy you as well. Talking about the soul rending. Now, this is very much, I think, confirming that Sylvanas and the Jailer were a thing since Warcraft 3. Now, this is just the Jailer knowing that he has inflicted this grievous wound upon her soul in Warcraft 3. I believe canonically then, it's only after she hops off Icecrown Citadel and has the other death that the Jailer, kind of slips into her DMs via the Valkyr, and that's where the Sylvanas that we kind of now know really starts to take off. The previous Sylvanas was just like, good Sylvanas with like the whole sort of some of the good bits of her missing. So she's more hardcore and, a bit more okay with doing dastardly sort of evilish things. But that evil is kind of more harnessed and directioned whenever the Jailer comes in. So I think that's the read in that. And then as it goes on, the line from Uther is, will you accept her shattered legacy and tell us how to stop him? And Sylvanas says, her crimes are unforgivable and I must face the consequences. Now, this is the really weird thing, because if this Sylvanas looks on the other Sylvanas in horror at what she's done, not really recognizing it as herself, but then identifying that, yes, like literally they are the same person, but that bit of her was soul fractured, it comes back to that sort of anecdote I gave earlier, right? Like, this Ranger General Sylvanas, let's just say, it's probably not going to be this, but let's just say execution was the punishment for her crimes, which in a sort of fantasy, medievally, whatever sort of world, execution generally is the sort of thing that would happen for something like that. I think we could agree. Would it be fair for Sylvanas, the whole reconstituted proper being, to be executed based on what she did when, she was acting under very different circumstances with basically a large chunk of her soul removed?
Yeah, it's fair killer.
So even if you don't go with this is just good guy Sylvanas being punished for bad guy Sylvanas' actions, it still feels, it's a little bit messy, a little bit muddy,
no,
I would sort of say.
Pretty clean to me, killer.
Now Uther says, we cannot change the past, we may never find, forgiveness in the future, but
put it down,
inaction
dude.
damns us all, time is short.
Like a rabid dog, you put it down.
Make her choice. And she does, because we see her wake up. We see her wake up in a way that is very much calling back, musically and all of that, and the camera as well, to what was going on with Legion. Right, where, as Vol'jin died, Sylvanas rises up. So, yeah, that's the crack there, everybody. That's what's going on. And it is an interesting situation, because I think you can tell from what I've said so far that, I think this is roughly what we expected, right? I pretty much remember saying around patch 9.1, okay, they're going to use the split soul thing to diminish her culpability, find a way to soft redeem her, and then probably work out how to put her back in the box for a little while, so it doesn't feel like she's the protagonist or, the main character of Warcraft.
That's exactly what they're
pretty
doing.
much still what they're going to do, actually. And, if you want my personal thoughts on this.
Yes, I do.
From, more of a philosophical angle.
No. I want your thoughts on it from the story angle.
The Sylvanas who did those terrible deeds is gone. I don't think she exists anymore as soon as Sylvanas wakes up, in fact.
No. Listen, Bellular, what I want to know is, do you think that the story is going in a good direction? That's what I want to know.
And this is not me saying this in terms of, this is where I want the story to go. This is more my philosophical response to the quandary of what the fuck do you do with Sylvanas, right? And I think my philosophical response to that is, new Sylvanas is, even the way that they visually represented it, I don't think it's fair to punish the Ranger General for what the Banshee did, when the Ranger General had really literally no part in it. And you could then say, well, this is all just some sort of metaphor for saying you have this badness, you have this darkness within you. If all of your empathy and compassion was removed, look at the terrible things that you could do. And I'd say back to that, okay, yeah, but if you...
Yeah, I could do some pretty fucked up shit if you remove my moral compass. Yeah, I probably could.
You externally had your empathy and compassion removed, did a terrible thing, got them back, and were back to your old self. I mean, is the true blame there not on the person who removed your empathy and compassion and then used you as a tool to do all these terrible things? And yeah, I know a lot of, I think, baggage will come into this. I think a lot of people just say, oh, here, look, it's Sylvanas. I just couldn't be bothered with her anymore. Lop her head off. Let's be done with it.
Yes.
No more World of Warcraft. Sylvanas is the main character, please. And, broadly, I do kind of agree with that. But I'm trying to take this for what it is and work out what I think should really be done with Sylvanas. And,
I mean, here's the thing that you got to go for, right? Sylvanas I always felt like was a very nuanced character with the decisions that she made and, the subterfuge that she had going. And basically what this does is it just removes all that. It just literally strips it out of the character. It's just like, no. The bad man made her do it. So it's like, none of it. So she's just like a shell of a character, basically. I think that this is so incredibly disrespectful for the work that was previously done in this character, for the agency that this character has had in the game. And I'm talking as someone that doesn't even, at this point, I stopped caring about the lore since fucking Warlords of Draenor, right? But I think this diminishes the character in so many ways that it's like they literally just removed agency from the characters. Like, no. Forget all the bad things she's done. The bad man made her do it. What? What the fuck? I mean, come on, dude. You can't just oh yeah, it was the bad man made him do it.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of frustrating. There's a lot of things between a few different games and, pieces of media that I'd love to bring in here. Some shows such as, say, even Mr. Robot, but, some Mr. Robot Season 2-ish things you can sort of feel them a little bit. But to do so would involve spoilers, so I...
Gambachi, thank you very much for
but maybe if you've also watched those things, you'll kind of know what I'm thinking about between
Appreciate
the FF
support.
example
Thank you.
and a little bit of the Mr. Robot. Not that this is the same as Mr. Robot. So it's a funny old situation. I think it's going to be weird. It'll feel unfair if, good reconstituted Sylvanas takes 100% of the blame for Banshee Sylvanas because, I mean, that was a different person. It goes back to that sort of, little brain tumor story I recounted a bit earlier. So let me know what you think on that one. Now, for some other things on the cinematic itself, look, it's a WoW cinematic, so generally speaking, they look good. They're well directed. The lines that are there are performed well. I would have a few criticisms of the writing. Sometimes it feels a little bit stilted. I would like, not naturalistic, but I'd like the conversations to go on just a little bit longer. And they kind of do this thing of, show, don't tell, absolutely, and that is good, and that is sort of done here, but they do quite a lot of show and tell, like the bit where, she mentions, the prince, and then it does a flash to Arthas, and then I think Uther says Arthas, or Sylvanas says Arthas, or whatever. It's like, okay, you've repeated the same point with your, so many different times here that it feels like just a wee bit clunk, but maybe they were just trying to make that, super mega clear. That said, I mean, who's going to see that and not know that it's Arthas? There was just a little bit of that with the dialogue that just, the usual, felt a bit on the nose. And I think overall it's a cinematic that could end up being quite unclear to a bunch of people. And it's just that thing. The visual storytelling of this basically does show that in her head, there is good guy Sylvanas and bad guy Sylvanas. And basically the result is that good guy Sylvanas has got to shoulder the blame of what bad guy Sylvanas did, even though good guy Sylvanas had no part in it. And meshing that with what Blizzard has said, which is kind of contradictory to that, about how the soul fracturing works, that it's kind of not just, you're split in two, there's good you, bad you. That is a little bit challenging, perhaps the in-game presentation will clarify that a little bit more. And I guess the other thing I'd say is, man, this is a really, like, Blizz, okay, look, I know why you put this out. You put this out so the testers and the PTR would see this and understand where your story is. Perhaps a situation where without this, Blizzard were worried that some of the new Covenant campaign chapters would be really, you know, criticized heavily, because without seeing this Sylvanas development, people would, you know, maybe not understand the new chapters, would be confused by them, maybe they'd come off wrong, and there'd be a bunch of criticism that wouldn't reflect the overall story they're trying to tell. So, that I do understand. Still, this is not the way for this to come out. I mean, it even is labeled on the WoW channel, in-game cinematic. This should be in-game. We should not be seeing it right now. And frankly, PTR testers, in my view, should not see any narrative content. My stance on this is actually hardened over time. I do believe that...
Dude, Final Fantasy XIV fucking got to him, dude. Actually experiencing a proper fucking story without getting spoiled. Isn't that great? Yeah, it is. It's really fucking good. And he's absolutely right. PTR testers should not be QA testers. These are two different things. PTR testers should not be subject to, you know, story spoilers. They're supposed to be there to test, like, mechanics, class balance. Hell, they shouldn't even do that. In an ideal environment, there shouldn't even be a fucking PTR. But sure, we get it. You need, like, you know, but for PTR stuff, it should be done for, like, hey, look, this ability change, check it out, see what you think about it, you know? Hey, these things changed about your character. We added these new emotes. We wanted to test out how these emotes work on a live environment, right? We wanted to test out this skill on a live environment. We want to test out this mechanic on a live environment. Not, we wanted to show you the story. Here's a full fucking quest line. Debug this quest line for us. Why don't you guys debug this quest line for us? What the fuck?
That all the broadcast text should be encrypted so that we don't know what it is until the patch comes out. I think there should be none of the in-game cinematics. They should not be there.
Exactly.
I think the Covenant campaign chapter should not be tested.
Exactly.
Because frankly, lots of other MMOs are able to do all that.
No, they should be tested by a fucking QA team. They should be tested by a QA team, not by PTR players.
Content without testing. Now, if Blizzard wants to do targeted raid testing for bosses and...
Silver Nitro, how's the PTR made in Square Enix? It's not. There is no PTR. Content comes out, that's when it gets tested by players. They have a fucking QA team. A QA team tests the content. Like their raids, for instance, they have people that raid. Yoshi P raids. They don't release an ultimate that their team can't beat. It's that simple. They have a fucking raid team to test their raids. They have QA testers to test their quests. They have all of this shit. Aren't they afraid it will be buggy? Of course they are. Of course. I'd be scared shitless. But see, that's the thing. You test it, you do your best, you put it out there. That's how it works.
Things like that. Sure thing, fair enough. Do that for your gameplay and your class design and all of that, but let's keep the narrative out of it. I think
like Silver Nitro, there wasn't like a PTR test for Endwalker. Nobody knew what the lore was of Endwalker. Nobody knew. We got in there and we played the game. Hell, I still don't know a lot of the quests because I haven't done them.
That would mean that these things would, you know, you just see them all in the intended context. And look, I know that what I'm saying there, literally, it would lose Wowhead money, it would lose us money, it would lose every freaking YouTuber money, whatever. That doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that people can enjoy the game. And I think when everything comes out in a super crazy fragmented way, I mean, it does increase the utility of channels like ours, because sometimes it's like, whoa, what? We just saw this out of the blue.
I want you to realize one thing. Right now, he's speaking against like even the value of his content. Because a lot of the value of his content is precisely because he's able to explain this shit to people. And that's why, you know, it's valuable. And Bellular is like, I just want to play a good fucking game. I can figure out, Bellular is basically screaming out, I can figure out the content part, Blizzard. I don't need this. I can figure this shit out. I can make my content be good without needing to explain the shit that you motherfuckers can explain to your own goddamn player base. I can figure it out. I can do content. I just want a good fucking game. That's what Bellular is practically screaming. I just want a good fucking game. I just want a game that I can play and be excited about. Good God.
Can I outsource all of some of the thinking and understanding and, the legwork of looking through the disparate sources to somebody else so that I can digest the story? Because it's not my job to sit around trying to piece it, to make sense. So, it does provide us with a bit of purpose, a bit of utility, but that shouldn't be at the expense of, logging into the game on patch day and thinking, oh shit, what's going to happen? What am I going to get? How's it going to be? Anyway, that's really my thoughts and my lore analysis of this one. Yeah, that's what it is. I still have one final question. What's going on with the Uther we saw in Icecrown Citadel in those dungeons? Because...
not even Blizzard fucking knows. They're like, wait. Someone at Blizzard is watching this video right now and going like, wait, there's an Uther in the Torghast dungeons? What the fuck? Who put that there? I bet you that there's someone at Blizzard going like, wait, what the fuck?
He's not being dealt with, right? Because there's the Uther in the Shadowlands. Bluther. And then he gets his soul back. But what about the Uther we saw in Icecrown Citadel? Is that a plot hole? I'm confused, so I'd like to know. Yeah, okay, right. That's it. That's it for me. Have a nice day. Let me know what you think about this and what your responses are to the sort of, moral questions that I've posed in today's video. I'd love to know where everyone falls in this issue. So let me know. Have a great day. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Actually, it's future me here. I do have a quick look.
Holy shit! That was scary. Did anybody else get fucking freaked out by that? Jesus Christ! Bellular, what the fuck, dude? That came out of nowhere. Holy shit. Give me a fucking heart attack. Like, he was winding down. Just like, it's like, jeez. It's these fucking Zoomer, these Zoomer transitions, dude. I can't fucking deal with it. I'm too old for this shit. I'm not even, because listen, when I was at Broadband TV, like, they actually gave us these Zoomer transitions for us to use, and they would complain to me, Rurikhan, why do you always use the same one? Because I would use, like, out of the Zoomer transitions they gave me to use, I would always use the absolute most subdued one. That was the one that had the least visual impact, because every time I had to edit a video and look at that goddamn, just like, Jesus, fuck, I can't. Some of them would actually hurt my ears with the sounds. It was just like this. I would never use those. And I even nerfed the sound on them too whenever I use those Zoomer transitions. But Jesus Christ, dude, I can't stand these.
Because there's one thing that I can't...
Yeah, I can see that on the screen behind him. He's sitting on Q Walker.
Believe I did not say in that video, and it's sort of on macro narrative design and designing for
audio in this one.
A potential criticism I have, and if you are a really big Sylvanas person, I really want to know what you think in this one. So this is a very, very hard confirmation that Sylvanas, at any rate, was severely impacted by whatever tomfoolery was done with her soul, right? And that means that the Sylvanas that we saw in World of Warcraft was kind of that permutation of Sylvanas. Now, there's a few things there. Does that kind of, well, what does it mean for, agency in that character? And therefore, what does it mean for player investment in that character? Because it's now...
Just like I said, like, that character has been completely and utterly disrespected, stripped of any agency whatsoever.
Kind of turned out that the Sylvanas that we all got invested in, for a lot of people, I think that's the Sylvanas who, is overcoming the Arthas situation, and then around the Cataclysm era is sort of a more ruthless pragmatist, launching her war. I mean, come on, Silver Pine Forest, it's a really fun leveling zone. So, does it feel funny to have been invested in Sylvanas at that time as a player, and to have the rug pulled out from under us? Does it feel...
Funny is not the word that I would use. I mean, I've never been invested in Sylvanas, but I can imagine if I was, I don't think funny would be the word that I would use. Like, let me think about a character. Like, picture Emmett Selk, and then imagine that he had been, like, tampered or something. And it's like, oh, he only did all the things that he did because he was tampered. Imagine! Just like for a second, right? I know that some of you will not understand that reference, but for a lot of you guys, it will make sense, right? Just picture Emmett Selk and then imagine that he was basically tempered and that was it. Like, that's the reason he did all the things that he did. No, he wasn't, Muffin. Anyway, let's not get into details on that.
Like that to people, and especially too, you know, with Battle for Azeroth, Blizzard quite heavily said that Sylvanas' story was morally grey, which is really hilarious when you look back on it. It does make you think, did they have all of this super well planned out? Because it ain't morally grey whatsoever, right? But a part of them trying to say that this was all morally grey was that a player could decide to be a Sylvanas loyalist. And that was supposed to be a valid way for a player character, a member of the Horde, to go. Now,
oh yeah, right, they did that
quest at the start of the expansion, and it started to make less and less sense as the expansion went on. And now we're at a situation where if you joined up, you know, if you're a Sylvanas loyalist, you're canonically the bad guy. And I think that's being very prescriptive about the player character's role. And I suppose the thing is, you know, thus far, the Sylvanas loyalists haven't had much payoff. I mean, they have at the end of Battle for Azeroth, but obviously Blizzard just took the decision with Shadowlands that, okay, Sylvanas is actually just a bad guy now. That's that. But I don't think it's really ever been dealt with in respect to the degree of player choice that was offered. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously, Alex Afrasabi's no longer at the company for all of those reasons. And
what a damn shame.
Having talked about some of that Sylvanas stuff. So maybe that was some of his ideas that are now benched a little. It's kind of hard to say. But yeah, it's a pretty clear criticism where this is the sort of thing where I think this very much, again, if this was a novel, if this was a TV show or a movie, you could probably do these things. You know, you just need to have a good M. Night Shyamalan twist, i.e. Sixth Sense, and not a bad twist. Because in these stories, a good twist is when a movie's super, super enjoyable as you're watching it, and then the twist happens, the twist is really satisfying, and it reframes the things you've already watched, but in a way that's really satisfying. Whenever a twist in a movie is bad, what often happens is the plot has to...
Like a good example would be The Last Jedi. Like, you know, something as meaningless as Luke suddenly considering the thought of murdering his fucking nephew while he's sleeping. You know, just a little thing. Just a little thing. You know, just a little bit of a plot twist. Not a big one. You know, just like, you know, Luke Skywalker, just randomly, the thought just randomly crossed his mind. Hey, maybe I'll just murder my nephew in his sleep. You know, a satisfying twist.
If only I could be so grossly
make a whole bunch of
incandescent.
sacrifices to make the twist work.
Ninpo Bob, thank you very much for becoming
really
grossly incandescent. Tip of the hat. Appreciate the support.
From
Thank
the
you.
viewer's perspective, which is different to the perspective of the creator, who of course has always conceived their story knowing the twist. It's a very, very core part of storytelling, and it's something that we see sometimes done very well, and oftentimes really not done that well at all. I think some of that could be happening here, and it's just tricky because this isn't a single-player game. This is an MMO where like the setting of the world matters a hell of a lot, and I think just... that's something I forgot, really. I honestly forgot to talk about in the primary recording of this, and that's why it's a phone video to finish this off. Sorry for the decreased quality. Let me know what you think about that bit as well.
That phone's got a pretty good microphone, though. That phone's got a pretty good microphone. I'd probably swap the audio to mono, though, because the stereo was kind of weird. But yeah, still. Thanks for the explanation, Bellular, but like, the shit still doesn't make any goddamn sense. It doesn't help their case at all.
Sponsored by that game.
Whoops. I didn't mean to actually click that video.